Say Shy City and around the world, welcome to another episode of Chicago's ILLectuals podcast. And today we have Dr. Akinsheye, Damon. Welcome, man.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
So, how you feeling today? You chilling? Everything is okay?
Everything is very good. I had a full day at the spa. They have a bathhouse in Lower Manhattan that I was able to enjoy. I love water. So I was able to be in the water for hours yesterday. And it was necessary. It was needed. I've been going. And so I needed some rest and relaxation.
Okay. So as you know, the purpose of our podcast is to tell our own stories and to illuminate those amongst us who are just brilliant. Okay. So you happen to be one of those people. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Tell the world a little bit about your background, like where you were raised, how you were raised, your schools, etc.
All right. So I was raised in Albany, New York. First of my family to be born in Albany. My family's from downstate New York. So Long Island, New York City. So I was the first person born in Albany, raised in Albany, which is the capital of New York. And raised by both of my parents. Again, they were from Long Island. They were together, teenage sweethearts who were together for 45, I think it was 45 years until death did them part. And so also very pro-Black parents. So I am definitely consider myself a Pan-African, have a Pan-African mindset. But we'll probably get into that, so I won't say too much about that. Schools, of course, went through the Albany public school system, but then started at Howard University when I graduated from high school, ended up transferring and moving to Atlanta and got my first degree, which was my associate's degree from Atlanta Metropolitan College. Then went on to Georgia State to get my bachelor's degree. Then I got my master's and specialist degrees from Walden University. And my doctoral degree is from Gwinnett Mercy University.
Wow. So did you go straight through in your academic journey?
No, it's been years. It's been years. So I started in 95 at Howard, didn't get got my associates in 97, I think. Okay. 97, I think. Maybe 98, I can't remember. But yeah, I had to take time. So with every degree, I was also typically a pregnant or, definitely a mom for my whole time. I've always been a full-time mom. After I left Howard, all the other schools I named, I was a full-time mom, full-time employee, and full-time student. So talk about grinding and being determined. But yeah, so with that said, I definitely, there were times where I had to take breaks. But I've been in school pretty much all my life. But I've had to stop and then come back and stop and come back. But since like 1983, up until I completed my dissertation, I think there were only 5, and I completed my dissertation in 2022. I think there were only like 4 or 5 years that I wasn't someone's student since 1983. So I truly have been a lifelong learner and still just a student of life.
You know what's funny is that you said you got your associates from Atlanta Metropolitan in 97?
Yeah, 97 or 98, yep.
And you know what? I was at Atlanta Area Tech in 96.
Oh, we were on the same
97. 96 and 97, we were in the same area and didn't even know.
We right passed each other and everything.
Yeah, but
Parkway.
Something else that you said that's very important was that, you didn't allow pregnancy and work to stifle you or stop you from pursuing your goal, and that's very important. That's one of the reasons why I like this platform and I like what we do here is because, sometimes when people are just living life and they're having situations like pregnancy or marriage, or they're working, but they still have goals to pursue. Sometimes, people might start to second guess themselves, you know, and they won't continue to pursue their goals. So it's very important to have you here as an example of what perseverance looks like. Talk a little bit about your values. Talk a little bit about growing up pro-Black and the values that you have.
Yes, that excites me. See my big old cheese smile. So I consider myself a Kwanzaa girl. I grew up celebrating Kwanzaa my entire life. So from my parents were already celebrating it before I was born. So I'm very much grounded in a unity consciousness, very much about we're all in this together, and that we have to come together in order to be able to get ourselves out of the conditions that the system has, that we found ourselves in as a result of the system. So yes, Pan-African for sure. The way I was raised around Kwanzaa, my father would say, first you have to, like, Kwanzaa is a way of life. The Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles, I was raised as it's a way of life. So it's not just a celebration for 7 days at, the end of the year into the new year. It's about embodying these principles. And so for my dad, he used to say, you need to first get yourself together, then your family, then your community, then your nation, and then the globe. And so those are the steps that I followed, and so I'm thankful to be able to be engaging at the global level now. But yeah, I'm Pan-African for sure. I do believe that it is until Africa and its diaspora is treated right, the world is not going to be right, until the original peoples are restored to their greatness or allowed to be their great selves without all of these systems holding us back. The world is not going to be able to accelerate in the way that it should. But I do also think that now is the time. This year is a very pivotal year. When we think about the African Union and their theme for 2025 is justice for Africans and African diasporans through reparations. I do think that, we are seeing a lot more global unity amongst Black people. And these conversations are starting to come up more. Reparations, of course, has been on the table for hundreds of years at this point. But I'm an optimistic person, so I'm looking forward to seeing how things continue to unfold.
Well said, Dr. Ife in the house. Okay. Listen, you're absolutely right. There's so many people moving to the continent, and it's just magnificent there, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Where did you get your mindset? You kind of spoke to this, but where did you get your mindset, and who were some of your earliest influences?
So my earliest influences were absolutely my parents. I am a parents girl, so I'm a mama's girl and a daddy's girl. I definitely respected their approach to parenting. They, as far as I'm concerned, they raised me right. That doesn't mean that there were challenges. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything like that, or that they were perfect, but I really valued how they raised me. Education was definitely a top priority for our household. We were, my father was a philosophy major and philosophy and English major at SUNY. And my mom was the ultimate unconditional lover. So, I had that balance of love and, excellence. It was definitely about, what does Black excellence look like, even before that term was out. But just that idea of you got to represent, you have to be, their motto wasn't you got to be 2 steps ahead. It was you got to be 10 steps ahead. So our conversations at the dinner table were around, what does it look like to be community? How do you elevate your community? What are some of the issues? What would you do to, to elevate this? If you were in this position, how would you do things differently? So these were the kind of conversations I grew up with. So that critical consciousness was a part of my life from a very early age. And I'm the third. I have an older brother and sister, younger brother and sister as well. So I'm right in the middle. But being that I wasn't the oldest, I got to learn from my older siblings as well. And I will say that my brother, this is New York, very New York thing. So you may or may not have heard of it, but he was part of the Nation of Gods and Earths, aka 5%ers. So I don't know. Okay.
What do you mean?
So
I may not have heard.
okay, all
I
right.
absolutely heard. Yeah.
Okay, good. It's a very, New York, it was, grassroots New York type
Yeah.
of movement. So I always like to assume that everybody, outside of New York is familiar. But anyway, so that consciousness was also embedded into me. And so my parents, because I was liberated to be a free thinker, I always thought outside the box. I had a father who was a visionary, a mother who was loving, so and supportive in every way, just the ultimate nurturing. I was able to have that balance of what a male and female. It was a very traditional household. My father worked, my mother did not have to work. And she didn't until we all went to school. And even when we first went to school, her first thing was to volunteer at my school. So she still was with us for a little bit. And then she went into the after school. She started, her first job was working at an after school program that we went to. So she was still very much involved in our lives. So that family element is very strong for me. And as a mom, I'm still that, like, I took pretty much all my pages out of their playbook. I took all their pages out of their playbook in raising my children. And so yeah, those values, that way of academic excellence, Black excellence, even as I say Black excellence, it can be tiring too, so like just the thought of it, because being 10 steps ahead is not, it's a lot, it's a
You're
lot.
consistent, right? Consistently having to do that, right?
Yeah,
It becomes a lifestyle. It's not just a one-stop shop. You have to continue to do this. This is what you do. You eat, sleep, and drink this, right? Tell me how you define unconditional love. I heard you use that term regarding your mother.
Yes.
In terms, how would you define unconditional love?
Yes, thank you for asking that, because I just want to first say Ife means love. So love is a central part of who I am. And my mother showed me what unconditional love is all about. For me, and what I saw as unconditional love is no matter what we did, my mother, her love, like we never felt her love like lessen for us. It never decreased.
There was no sweat.
There was no, she loved us. She supported us. She poured into us. She was very affirming and uplifting. So I grew up, and I'm very humbly thankful, but I grew up very supported, very, I grew up very nurtured and very confident, because at home my confidence was built up. So I didn't come home to be I wasn't tore down at home, so I was built up, and so that allowed me to go into the world confident. And so my mother was the major player. My mother was all of our first teacher. We went into school, before we even started school, we were reading and writing because my mother didn't play. She made sure that we were on point. So yeah, that unconditional love is about holding a space of love, regardless of what a person does. Like, it just doesn't change. It's not changing, based on conditions.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Ashe, I just got Ashe to my parents.
Yes. I would really like for you to sit back, kind of take a deep breath,
Okay.
relax a bit, because we're about to talk about the community-based education movement, which is your baby, right?
Yes.
Can you define this, take us through its maturation and the process of creating this movement?
Yes. So I'll first start by saying that community-based education is all about bringing the community in a classroom together. So I just want to set that as the grounding. But just a little bit more background about me. I'm an educator. I've been in education for over 20 years at this point. And I've taught from the baby room. I was a school administrator at the elementary school level. I taught at the middle school level. I've taught and led at the high school level. And I also currently teach teachers at the graduate school level. So I've taught from preschool to grad school and everything in between, but I've also taught all of the core subjects. So math, science, English, social studies. And that's allowed me to have a very unique perspective of education that most educators or students don't have. Because mind you, also, I've been a lifelong learner this whole time too. So it's giving me a very unique position and perspective on education. And one of the things that I've learned is that regardless of the subject, regardless of the grade level, when the learning is connected to students' real lives, that's when they're more likely to be engaged in the content. That's when they're more likely to understand the content. They do better on standardized assessments, and they remember the information long term. So over time, community-based learning became a focus for me. And so when I say community-based learning, it's about students learning how their academic skills are connected to the real world. So that's like the simplest term of like community-based learning is when they learn and it's connected to the real world. But for me, so my doctoral research was on community-based learning. I've implemented some projects as a teacher. Students were, I really became an advocate of it. I saw the progress. I've had success with students with their standardized assessment scores, whether they're in gen ed or special ed. I've had special ed students outperform gen ed students on state exams. And so, you know, I very humbly say that I know what I'm doing in a sense. You know, I've had some success enough to be confident to say that this is a mode of education that we need to start thinking about. This is a viable solution to closing the people say the opportunity, I mean the what do they call it? The achievement gap. I call it the opportunity gap. Or in New York City, that's the term. I didn't make it up, but in New York City, you know, a chancellor we had, he started saying that, and I was like, yeah, because it is about the opportunity. It's not that we can't achieve, you know, marginalized. It's not that marginalized students can't achieve, but often it's about the opportunities that they have that are often lacking that impact their achievements. So, so my focus is on, you know, how do we close that opportunity gap? And for me, that's community-based education. So we all know the phrase, you can even see a little bit of the idea behind me right here. It takes a village to raise a child. And so for me, one of my early questions was, how do we reduce the role of the teacher? Like as an educator, I know how burned out teachers are. I know I've been a burned out teacher. I took a sabbatical during my first doctoral run because it was too much. And I know what that burnout feels like. I also know how much the demand of teachers is constantly growing. There's always more and more. And so one of my early questions to myself was, how do we reduce the role of the teacher in the classroom? And the very next thought was the community. And so it really is going back to that old idea of it takes a village to raise a child. There are people in the world who are using these academic skills in their everyday lives. How about we show students how those skills can be used instead of just keeping it abstract? So in school, it's very much about the teachers like, this is what I know. I'm going to tell you what I know. You're going to show me what I want you to show me about what I know. Basically, that's like the formula. And it doesn't work. It works for some kids. It worked for me. I was an honor student. I did, you know, I knew how to do school. But a lot of kids don't, you know, and it's not just Black and brown kids, but just the system as a whole is not effective in preparing students for an ever evolving 21st century. So for me, we need that community to be in the classroom. But not only does it take a village to raise a child, it takes a child to raise a village. And so students are an untapped resource that we also need in the community. So we need the communities in the school, but we also need students in the community in order to help raise the community. And so for me, community-based education is about using academic skills, 21st century skills, and a term that I've coined, third millennium skills, to help students learn about and improve their communities.
Wow, wow, wow. So you said students can potentially become an untapped resource. And we know this to be true, right? We also know that many times potential of students go untapped, and their brilliance go untapped due to being in quality education deserts or living in quality education deserts. My question to you is, did you have to go through an accreditation process? Because this was your dissertation, right? This means that you've researched this, right? I just want the world to know this is not some quack material, right?
No.
This is something that you've researched, right?
Absolutely.
So did you have to go through an accreditation process in order to present your model to the school systems? Because I noticed you're presenting your model to the school. As a matter of fact, you talk a little bit about you just got a contract, right?
Yes, I did just get a contract. Thank you. Just this week. So no, I didn't have to go through accreditation. Well, it depends. So yes, I had to become a vendor with the New York City public school system in order to even be able to do business with New York City. But as far as like an accrediting system, no, I'm the expert. So like you said, I have done my research. First of all, I'm a teacher who has a great reputation and success in the classroom, not just on paper, but even more importantly with the students.
Yes.
So the students have, and I very humbly say, told me I'm the most valid teacher in the building. And that's one of the biggest compliments you could get from a Gen Z or Gen A. So, and, I take that seriously because for me, it's about, and that's where my mother comes in. It's about the relationship. So I, as a teacher, led with love. And I know it's not your question, but I just want to say that, so my heart is in education. I was called to be an educator. I was called to teach students, not subjects. And so that's why I'm thankful I have been multi-subject, because I'm multi-subject, but the teachers I've worked with, they may have been like when I taught at the high school level in the English department, they often look at it, they're teaching English. They're teaching a book, not, so their focus is on the subject. Oftentimes, not everybody, but because those are my friends, so they see this on and be like, oh, that's how you feel, But some of them are loyal to, I've seen over years in whatever school I was in, whatever subject, a lot of teachers are loyal to the subject because that's their mastery. They love math. They wanted to teach math. I love students who wanted to teach students, so I'm not loyal to any subject. But to go back to your question, I'm sorry, I just lost. What was your original? Because I know I digressed a little bit.
So what I was asking was, did you have to go through an accreditation process? And you were saying no, that you're the expert, because we want to illuminate that, right? Because people will watch this and they will think that, somebody just woke up yesterday and decided to create a model. No, that's not how it went. This is your science. This is evidence-based. You did your dissertation on this.
Yes, this is my dissertation. And just to speak on that a little bit, so my research focused on why isn't community-based learning happening? So of course, I have my own personal experience of the amazingness, but I also did extensive literary analysis, literature review to show the value and benefits of community-based learning. So I didn't want my research to be on, is it great? I wanted it to be on why isn't it happening enough? Because it's not happening enough. It's an amazing model, but most people have not even heard of community-based learning or community-based education. And so what I did was interview New York City high school teachers to find out their barriers to implementing community-based learning. And what I found is a lack of knowledge and a lack of support were the primary reasons why it wasn't happening. And so that informed me for starting the community-based education movement, to provide that knowledge and support, but to also to conduct ongoing research of its implementation. And it is a movement. This is not something that's just overnight,
You can say that again. This is a movement.
This is a movement. This is not a movement. This is a movement.
This is why I want you to take your time and relax, because we need to let people know. That's what it is, a movement, right?
A movement, yes. And so, and I announced the movement at my dissertation defense. So the moment I became a doctor was the moment the movement began. And thank you. And so now that's what I do is focus on bringing knowledge and awareness, providing educators with the knowledge to implement, but also the support, because that's a key piece as educators, especially in the K-12 setting. there are so many reforms that teachers have seen come and go. And a main reason why reforms don't stick is because there's no support. So there'll be a professional development saying, this is what we're doing now. This is all the rave. Go in your classrooms to do it. And what teachers do is close their door and do the same chalk and talk that they've been doing for decades. So for me, it's critical that that support piece is there in order to ensure sustainability.
Wow. Wow. And I just go back to the value of having your educator connect your life to what they're teaching you, right? Like, these are skills that's going to be applied to my real life situations in the future. Wow.
Right,
All I
right.
can say is wow.
How can we use these skills now?
Mm-hmm.
Not even when we graduate, when we grow up. How can students use these skills now to elevate their communities?
Wow.
Even more importantly, because if we're waiting until they graduate from high school to give back, we're going to get maybe 10%, maybe, of people who give back, you know, who have that kind of consciousness of, I need to support, like the Ubuntu mindset, you know, I am because we are, so I need to make sure that we're all good. If we're not instilling that in students, we can't, you know, one of the things I know is it's not a wise idea to just count on parents to do everything. It's just not realistic. It's just not. It's not. Even me as a mom, like I can't, you know, a mom who's an educator, you know, I definitely instill academic excellence, but I'm not the parent of the year in any of my children's schools because there's so many things that are demanding, you know. And so because I have that hat as a parent, but I also have the hat as an educator, I'm a community member, I bring all of that understanding and knowledge and curate in that way with that in mind. And so for me, yes, we do need parents at the table and they're part of the community. So parents are considered community partners when we talk about community-based education, but nothing should be created where a parent has to do it. And if a parent can't do it, then the child suffers, because then that's a disproportionality problem right there. Yeah.
Wow. So what is the future of community-based education? The community-based education movement, I should say.
Thank you. Yes. Right. And I just want to say, so under the community-based education movement, we have both a for-profit and a nonprofit. So the for-profit is CBE Consulting. CBE stands for Community-Based Education Consulting. And so that's the consulting business that provides support to schools, shows schools how to implement community-based education. We do, you know, community analyses, school analyses to see what are the resources, like a SWOT analysis. Okay, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, opportunities, threats, things like that. And then we can create curriculum based on that. We also, with CBE Consulting, provide corporations with training, because again, this is about everyone. So community-based education is focused on educators, students, and community partners, and teaching them how to collaborate together in order to elevate student voice so that students can elevate their communities. And so we also provide consulting services to corporations or community-based organizations, showing them how to we create the curriculum for them to implement in schools. So let's say, for example, I just recently wrote a proposal for a corporation to so that they can adopt a school of their choice, but then they can go in and implement the community advocacy project. So community advocacy project is a project where students have to identify an issue that negatively impacts their community. Then they have to conduct research, collecting quantitative and qualitative data from primary and secondary resources, from primary and secondary resources. So you see, I don't have a low expectation. I know what children can achieve. I know that children can think on a higher level. You see, I got them doing doctoral. They're doing real research. These are real.
I'm tripping because this is what we're doing. I mean, me and my cohort worked in dyads, and last semester, one of my colleagues and myself worked on the qualitative, and we're switching to quantitative now, and vice versa, right? So I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, so absolutely. That's why I said both, right?
Yes,
But that's
yes,
good.
they're doing mixed method research
Yeah.
from primary and secondary sources of information. So the curriculum is designed to teach them how to do that. So the curriculum teaches them how to create their own surveys to interview the community and how to interview the community. And so that's how they collect their, their data, but then also how to conduct research from secondary sources of information. And so once they have conducted this research, they use that to then make an informed decision about how they want to take action. So this is not just a passive activity where they're just doing research and it just lives with the teacher. They write a persuasive essay or argumentative essay and the teacher reads it and throws it in, grades it, throws it in the trash, and that's the end. No, this is about how do you use these academic skills to impact your community now. So they have to take action. So last year with the Community Advocacy Project, there were about 450 students who engaged in it. And a lot of students found that a primary cause was a lack of knowledge. Just like my research, a primary cause is a lack of knowledge, right? And so a lot of students created PSAs and posted them on their own social media. So how many students do you know putting their schoolwork on their own social media, right? Right.
Deal. It's a super big deal. Speaking of which, I saw you defend your dissertation on YouTube, right? Like you had to post it to YouTube, right? When did that become a thing? I didn't know. I was so proud. Like, when it was.
So I'll say this. I'm a YouTube University person. Like I use anything that I'm doing. If I'm driving in a car, I'm listening to YouTube to learn how to, whatever it is. So as I was going through each chapter, I'm listening to, I'm driving and I'm listening to all about chapter 1 or all about chapter 5 or whatever the chapter is. And I came across a very small amount of defenses being recorded. And so I asked, because mine was on Zoom, I asked the coordinator if I could, if it could be recorded. She said yes. And she sent me a copy. And I said, I would like to post this to my YouTube channel. And she was like, I think that's an excellent idea. So for one, it shows my research and shows, that I'm not new to this, I'm true to this, but also it's a model. Like I've shared it with people who are on their doctoral journey because it's a model that they can use for their own doctoral process. And so it's twofold, it educates people about community-based education, but it's also demonstrating, an effective dissertation defense. So, yeah.
Cold-blooded.
Well, if you have an opportunity,
oh my goodness, because that's the reason for this podcast, is to expose our brilliance to the world, right? To stop allowing others to tell our stories. But if a little girl sees you on YouTube defending your dissertation, come on now.
Yes.
I mean, and that just makes it so many layers more valid, because you allow yourself to be vulnerable and put yourself out there to the world while defending. Come on.
Yes.
I'm like, whoa. So you're a trailblazer in that regard.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Let's talk a little bit about your upcoming trip to Ethiopia. What is that all about?
So the upcoming trip to Ethiopia, first got to back up and give a little context. So I was in Ethiopia in November 2024. I was invited to be one of the speakers at a conference. And so while I was there, I met the people who are now doing this new conference. And so they asked me not only to be a speaker at the conference, but also to help to coordinate, be a co-coordinator or co-organizer of this conference. And so I'm very excited because this is my first international conference that I'm helping to create. And I'm, like I said, it's a global movement. I don't know, I actually didn't say that today, but this movement is a global movement. And so this specific conference that's coming up in February is focused on Black History Month. And it's focused on, even though it's taking place in Ethiopia, they are making sure that it's understood that they highly respect and value the contributions of Black Americans to the world. And they are specifically for this inaugural launch focusing on Black American heroines. So they're focusing on women first, which is so powerful, and I think just a wise decision. So the focus of this conference is on elevating Black women in America who have contributed positively to society. Ethiopia is very much interested in honoring Black Americans. They very much respect what Black Americans have contributed, not just to America, but to the world. And one of the other things that they're looking to do is to announce land designated for diasporans to come back. And so that's a very exciting. Yes. So yeah, that's a very exciting piece to it. You've heard it here first. It's really not even out yet, but that's one of the goals of the conference as well. As well as workshops and panel discussions and things like that. So it's honoring Black heroines, Black women in America, but it's also about fostering collective relationships, strengthening relationships, not just in Ethiopia, but around the continent and around the diaspora. So even though it's an Ethiopian event and it's honoring Americans, it's not just about Ethiopia and America. It's about Africa and the diaspora. And I'm not sure if the video cut off, so I just wanted to say that during this time, the African Union is having their annual summit where they will announce their theme of the year, which I mentioned earlier. Okay. And so there will be diplomats from around the world that will be in Ethiopia at the time, who will also be invited to participate in our conference as well. So we're excited about it, being a great success. This is the first one for years to come. But yeah, it's an exciting opportunity. I'm thankful to have been considered to participate in helping to organize it. And I look forward to it continuing to grow and for more and more Americans to come annually to be a part of the event.
Wow, that is exceptional. And this is the reason that we have to tell our own stories, because nobody else is going to illuminate these stories for us. This is spectacular. Your entire journey has been spectacular. And I want you to know that myself, some of my colleagues, comrades, and others are very proud of you, right?
Thank you.
That's important. That's important for us to let one another know and to remain in full support of one another and not allow petty frustrations to separate us, because that's been our issue, right? So I just want you to know that we're very proud of you, and you're fun to hang out with.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Right. Looking forward to it. Next round. Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship, because that's a huge theme with this podcast, right? Anyone we know that we deem to be successful has had a long list of people that helped them along the way. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship?
Yeah, so as you can tell about it, at this point, I'm very much a parents girl. So my parents were my first mentors, and I do have to say that, they definitely were very intentional about how they guided me through life, during my formative years, and provided advice. And I definitely was a child who listened. And so with that mindset, though, my parents, they also put me in organizations. I was an active child, just like I'm an active adult. I was that child that, in high school, I created, some clubs, and also was a part of like NAACP Youth Council. And so I had mentors in those programs. I was a part of Del Teen. So I had Delta mentors as a very young girl. And so mentoring has always been a part of my life. And just I guess how I was raised, or just me, just the dynamic of who I am. I believe I take very seriously the experiences of others. So if there's wisdom I can learn without having to go through that experience, I welcome it. Now, I definitely am. My maiden name is Knox, and I come from the School of Hard Knocks, and so there are things that I had to learn through experience as well. But as much as I can learn from wisdom, especially the older I got and valued wisdom more and more, mentoring it plays a pivotal role. And what the community-based education movement really is all about is mentoring. The community is mentoring the students.
Yeah.
But it's with the academic twist. So it's not just about mentoring just mentoring for in a traditional sense, but it's about, hey, let's come together and your academic skills are going to increase, but also your 21st century skills and your third millennium skills through us collaborating together. It's a collaborative model, and that's what mentoring is all about. Yeah. So for me, you can't really get anywhere without mentoring. I've had some major mentors in my life who have played pivotal roles. And knowing that not all mentors are going to be a part of your life forever. Sometimes there's just a reason and a season for certain people, but to be able to value that wisdom and that experience they have. And I'm big on mentoring a lot of my old students. So like, I'm the teacher that I give out my phone number the first day of school. Like, y'all have me for life. I'm not just your teacher this semester. I'm here for you for life. I'm not just invested in you for passing my class. I'm invested in your life. I'm invested in your future. And so I still have students who I communicate with, who I mentor to this day, who are my students, years ago. I have kids who I've taught in middle school, and they were my students again in high school. And, and that relationship has bloomed. So yeah, mentoring is pivotal.
Do you have a mentor presently?
I do have a mentor. When I went to that Ethiopian conference, the first one in November, I gained a new mentor who is doing what I want to do. She's global. She is a Pan-African. She is very unapologetically speaking about what needs to be discussed. She's a mover and a shaker. And those are things that I achieved to, I want to achieve and starting to now, And so she's someone who is guiding me with that. And so I do think it's important for people when identifying mentors, like if you want to specifically find someone who's doing what you want to do, who can show you the ropes, and so because I am interested in the global stage more, it is important for me to have a mentor who's also global, who can help me to navigate these global waters.
They demonstrate that unconditional love that you're talking about, because my journey has not gone without mistakes, right?
Right.
And so for someone to remain consistent in the face of your liabilities, it just strengthens the relationship, right? And so
Yeah.
that's a few of the reasons why mentorship is just really important. But also, just throughout life, I mean, we've gotten away from the concept of the village, and I think we're getting back to that now. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So what does Dr. Ife Akinsheye read? What do you read?
That's a great question. That is a great question. So I'll say I read online. I don't read a lot of books. I have a large book collection, but it's more for references. Like, I'll reference some things, but I am definitely a digital person. So a lot of things is articles, things like that. Then as I shared earlier, I'm a YouTube University person. And so a lot of it is not in the form of reading words, but learning through audio and, visuals. So I do want to say that too, because it's just the reality of the world we're in, where everything is we have information in so many formats, and so I do take in a lot of information. But as far as reading, I don't read a lot of books, hard copy books. That's just the truth.
Not anymore, right?
Right. Yeah. And I have them. Like I said, I have a large collection. But when I do, it's focused on pedagogy. It really is. I haven't read fiction in decades, to be honest. I watch fiction though.
Yeah.
I watch, movies, TV shows and stuff like that, when the time permits, but I'm not a fiction reader. And
it's difficult to find time though, when you're working.
It is, and that's
yeah. It's really difficult.
You know what? Sorry, I just thought about it. So on January 1st, I started a book. I just thought about it just now because I really don't read. And so this one is a so it's typically either pedagogical text or self-help. Like if you look at my library, those are the two categories. And so this is like a self-development book, and it's called Pleasure. And so it's about learning what pleases you, what are like living a life that's filled with pleasure. And I know you saw my YouTube video, because I have a YouTube channel on community-based education, but I also have one. I'm also a life coach. And so so I do videos also around self-development, like the journey of self-discovery. And so, you know, I just recently did the video about following your bliss, following your heart, following your joy. And so that's what this book is about. It's about following your, you know, the path, being on the path of pleasure, and being able to let picking up those seeds of joy and happiness and pleasure, letting that take you on a nice journey. So I actually do have a book, but I haven't read it. That's why I forgot about it, because I was like on New Year's Day, I was very much in, you know, like, okay, we're in 2025. So I took some time to do some reading and journaling, but to be honest, I haven't gotten back to the book since then. I brought it with me to the spa yesterday, but I still didn't get to read it. So, but yeah, that I would say self-development would be what I read.
So I would like for you to explain to the world what you mean by pedagogy. And I know because you're an educator, you're a researcher, and you were a student, but now you're a student trainer, certified life coach. You do many things, right? And so it's important for the audience to know what is meant by pedagogy, right? Because all of those things that you do is led by your pedagogy, right? So could you explain in layman's terms what you mean when you say pedagogy?
So pedagogy is basically about the way is the study of teaching and pedagogy is about teaching children. So then there's also andragogy, which is teaching adults. And so I am focused on that as well. But for me, really, I use the same model for both. So whether I'm teaching children or teaching adults, it's about building relationships, learning, you know, where they are on their journey to whatever it is that they need to learn, and then bridging that gap. But pedagogy, when I say that, it's about teaching. It's really just about, you know, a lot of text about
teaching. To teaching.
The approach to teaching.
Yes. So I just wanted the world to know that. I didn't want to put words in your mouth or anything like that. So
yes, I appreciate that.
What does Dr. Ife listen to in terms of music? What do you listen to? You grew up in New York. I know you got to say hip hop again. I'm not going to put words.
You know it. You know it. Right, because my eyes are drawn to that Nas picture right there. You're giving all the New York energy in your background. You got Def Jam and Nas. You're giving all the NYC. But yes, I am absolutely a hip hop baby, self-proclaimed hip hop baby. I've grown up listening to hip hop my whole life. It started when I was, you know, my whole life. Like I've heard people say it started in 77, but then I've heard other, you know, years. Even my dad, he's like, you know, he was part down with the Last Poets. So he was like, that was hip hop too, you know. So it's a part of, you know, it's definitely heavily embedded into my culture. But I will say my older brother, who I was talking about earlier, who is a part of Nation of Gods and Earth's 5%er, he definitely played a major influence in my love for hip hop, because he was a b-boy, like straight up.
One of the original b-boys, right?
Yes, original b-boy. His room, graffiti, the whole wall, and he is an artist too. And so his room was a room of graffiti. So like that culture was in my household, you know. Definitely R&B, you know, I'm Black culture, so R&B is very much a part of who I am. And reggae also, like I'm a dance hall. So, and that's also my brother, you know, in New York City, like on New York State in Albany, on Sundays, they would play reggae. Like there would be a reggae set on the radio. And so he was always playing it. So I fell in love with reggae at an early age. And now, you know, Afro beats has become a global thing. And so those are definitely that's the music that I listen to when I do listen to music. I am not, you know, a music all day, every day person. My children,
Yeah.
A lot of my children listen to music a lot. I'm like I said, I'm a YouTube person, so I'm always trying to learn. Like I'm always
Yeah.
listening to stuff that's teaching me whatever is the new thing that I need to learn. YouTube is great for that. But when it's time for me to clean up, I'm putting on some reggae. I need something that's gonna make me, move and want to
Yeah.
get energized and stuff like that. But first and foremost, I'm a hip hop baby, so I am hip hop first.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the golden era of hip hop in the '90s, where it was real authentic and just like just a great time to be alive, to be in New York. I wasn't in New York City in the '90s, but just even within the state, the culture of how hip hop influenced just even the state of New York, or major cities around New York is definitely a part of who I am today. I'm a hip hop baby. I've used hip hop, in my instruction when I do, instead of, like I said, I taught in the poetry, in the English department. And so like there's a poetry unit. So I would have students analyzing hip hop as that's poetry, so we're going to analyze, or you pick your own song, but so yeah, I'm very much, hip hop baby.
Well, the '90s era was the era when hip hop artists were telling the stories of our struggles, of our successes, and of our lives, right? And so that's probably why it was so successful. It was such a rich era of music because Biggie was saying either you slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot, and that's just the truth, right? And
Yeah.
so and many artists were doing that. So I clearly understand. I really appreciate that. Listen, I just wanted to say that we're very proud of you once again. And it's been a pleasure to have you here. But as we close, I'd like to introduce our final segment here. It's called Bring Some Weed. I got a story to tell.
Yes.
In this segment, I always like to afford our guests to have an opportunity to just express a story of their choice, no matter what it may be. So now is your time as we close.
Okay. So the story I'm going to share is a story from my childhood. And it's a story that highlights kind of the embodiment of who I am. Like I'm a Pisces, so let me just say that first. And it's a sign that has duality. And for me, it took later in life for me to understand and respect that more. But it's about balance. And so I always say like I'm 51, 49% on most things. Like I consider myself to be a very balanced person. And this story is about like I grew up the masculine and feminine aspect of who Ife is. And so I was a girly girl and a tomboy at the same time. And so this is a story of hanging out in the neighborhood with the kids. I was like I had an older brother and a younger brother who I'm right in the middle of, and so tomboy. I was a tomboy, but I was also very girly. And so this was a day we were in the neighborhood, and I had on a long skirt, but I'm still running around and keeping up with all the boys and girls in the neighborhood. And we're climbing fences, and I'm climbing a fence, and my skirt gets stuck on the fence and hooked. And so I'm just hanging. I'm just like, hey, everybody's I'm like, and I'm just stuck on the fence with my long girly skirt on. And so that the story cracks me up because for me, it shows that even though I was very, much exuding feminine energy, I still embrace my masculine energy too, of being, very active, very much, out there having fun with everybody. I wasn't just a little girl in the house just waiting, and just sitting on the steps. And that reflects who I am to this day. Like I feel that I'm balanced and that I am. I feel like, I embrace that I embody all of the ways, that a human can show up. Of course, I have my preference of how I want to show up, but I also understand that there's the other side as well that is very much present and can show up when necessary. So that's my story. I was
That's crazy.
Hanging by my skirt on that fence.
So how you get down?
They had to help me. They ran back. They came back and they rescued me. They rescued
That is
me.
funny. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Mhm.
So thank you, Ife. It's been a great interview. You know, just lots of fun, very informational, information packed, I should say. Go ahead and share your website, your links, your YouTube, whatever you want to share, so that people can reach out to you if they need be.
Okay. So if people want to learn just all things Ife, they can go to ifedamon.com. To learn specifically about the community-based education movement, go to cbemovement.com. I think I'll leave it at that, because if you go onto those, then you can find my social media from there. You can always Google. I have receipts, so you can just Google Ife Damon and, you know, be able to find me very quickly, easily.
Okay. So when are you leaving for Ethiopia?
I leave on the 6th.
Oh, 6th of February?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep. It's a Black History Month program. Yep.
wow, I know you're so excited.
I'll be there
Okay,
for-
we're going to close now for Dr. Ife Akinsheye Damon. This is a Kid Ride Out, and this has been another episode of Chicago's ILLectuals podcast. Peace and safe travels, Ife.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Peace.